This is our time on freedom. In the studio, Mikhail Baranov. Hello. The foreign ministers of the European Union have gathered in Brussels. On the agenda, discussion of the situation in the Middle East, in Georgia, as well as Russian aggression against Ukraine. The main issue is the 18th package of sanctions against the Russian Federation. As stated before the meeting by the EU representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, the new measures may still include a price cap on Russian oil. Among the decisions already made, the foreign ministers of EU countries have given the green light to a new package of sanctions against Moldovan entities linked to the Kremlin. Among them are pro-Russian politicians, organizations, as well as a company that, according to the European Union, was used to circumvent Western sanctions through cooperation with Russian state agencies. This decision was made against the backdrop of another wave of propaganda from Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service. Brussels states that Moscow is trying to destabilize the situation ahead of the parliamentary elections. What other important statements were made in Belgium is known by Vitaly Sizov, the special correspondent of Freedom TV channel in Europe. He is working directly at the scene and is ready to share the main messages. Vitaly, good afternoon. What topics have the EU foreign ministers already discussed, and is there a consensus on adopting the next, already 18th, package of restrictions against the Russian Federation and its accomplices?
Good afternoon, Mikhail. Yes, the ministers have been searching for consensus since this morning. For Ukraine, perhaps the main event was the speech by Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha, who joined his colleagues via video link and essentially opened this meeting.
We see that Russia rejects peaceful efforts and escalates terror. Moscow is pursuing three goals: to buy time to continue the war, to delay the imposition of sanctions, and to push the US out of peace efforts. Andriy Sybiha, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, from a statement on the website of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine.
The Ukrainian minister emphasized that Moscow must not be allowed to achieve these goals, and called on allies to take concrete steps to strengthen Ukraine and collective defense, as well as to increase transatlantic pressure on Russia. The Ukrainian minister urged that, for political reasons, the start of negotiations on Ukraine's accession to the European Union should not be blocked. According to him, Ukraine needs parity with Russia in terms of military potential and defense industry. That is why Sybiha called on European allies to increase investment in Ukraine's defense industrial complex, particularly in drone production. Discussions on the 18th package of sanctions are ongoing. According to my information, full agreement with Malta and Slovakia has not yet been reached. Malta does not yet support the introduction of a new oil price cap in the form in which it is being proposed. This means, well, it doesn't mean that they don't support it in principle. And Slovakia has objections regarding the refusal to use Russian gas until 2028. This issue is not directly related to the sanctions, but it is being raised in a certain way. Yes, the sanctions have become a sort of hostage to this issue, because Slovakia is seeking, well, is talking about some kind of compensation that it should receive before it can give up using Russian gas. And on this issue, the issue of sanctions, unanimity is required. So they are using the sanctions issue to get some kind of compensation. Before the meeting, a number of foreign ministers from EU countries expressed hope that the position of the US and its president, Donald Trump, which was announced yesterday, he threatened Russia with sanctions and gave a 50-day deadline to achieve a ceasefire, would also influence the skeptics within the European Union.
I am very glad that Europe and the US share the same position on this issue. I really think that the 50 days announced by Mr. Trump is quite a long time. The deadline until September 2nd, in my opinion, is rather long. But I appreciate that they truly see that Putin is stalling for time and that we need to increase the pressure on Russia. The bill by Senators Graham and Blumenthal has 87 co-sponsors. There has hardly ever been such a long list of co-sponsors. 87 out of 100 senators. That's why I really think it's very important for the US to move forward, and for us, as the EU, to move forward as well.
This morning, Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen said that, in order to adopt the sanctions package in its current form, the consent of 3 countries is needed, that is, one more than I mentioned. This could indicate that there is progress in the negotiations if the number of skeptics is, in fact, decreasing. According to the Danish representative, it will be possible to reach a consensus overall, including on the 18th package of sanctions.
And it's important to use the momentum created by yesterday's new statements from Trump, where he, like Lindsey Graham, spoke about secondary sanctions. I've long advocated for a more transatlantic approach. We need to put much more pressure on the Russian economy. That's why I believe that one of the key elements of the sanctions package is lowering the oil price cap. There is still no consensus. Without going into details, specifically, 3 countries are opposed. We are working on finding innovative solutions that will allow us to lower the price cap. And I think we are quite close to achieving this goal. Whether this will happen during today's meeting, this evening, or tomorrow, I can't say for sure, but I am very, very optimistic.
So far, according to the information as of today, at this moment, all the speakers we've managed to talk to, the foreign minister, the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, they all state that negotiations are ongoing, negotiations are progressing, and they expect that if not today, then tomorrow, it will be possible to agree on and adopt this 18th sanctions package. But for now, of course, we haven't seen any official decision yet. We're waiting for it, and perhaps more detailed information will become available soon, because Kallas's final press conference is scheduled literally in an hour or an hour and a half, and she should share with us information about how the discussion went, what was achieved today, and whether we can expect that within 2 days this 18th sanctions package will be adopted. Mikhail?
Colleague, thank you for your work. Vitaly Sizov, special correspondent for Freedom TV channel in Europe, was with us on the line. Let me remind you that today in Brussels, EU foreign ministers are discussing the situation in the Middle East and Georgia, as well as Russian aggression against Ukraine and the 18th package of sanctions against the aggressor country. And now to other important topics of the day. Russia continues its aerial terror against Ukraine. On Tuesday night, the occupying army launched 267 drones at peaceful cities. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, Russia used Shahid-type UAVs and various types of decoy drones for the attack. The drones were launched from Oryol, Bryansk, Kursk, Milarovo, and Primorsko-Akhtarsk. Air defense shot down 178 targets, while another 66 were lost from radar. The air attack was repelled by aviation, anti-aircraft missile troops, electronic warfare units, and mobile fire groups of Ukraine's defense forces. The Shastka community in Sumy region was under attack again. As a result, a 14-year-old child was injured. A medical facility building, as well as apartment blocks and private houses, were also damaged. Over the past day, 12 civilians were injured in the Sumy region as a result of drone attacks. Russian forces shelled 34 settlements. One person was injured as a result of a Russian missile attack on the city of Ochakiv in the Mykolaiv region. The victim was hospitalized. According to the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, dry grass and shrubs caught fire in an open area. The fire has already been extinguished. 185 clashes were recorded on the front line over the past day. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, fighting took place in more than 10 directions. The most difficult situation is in the Pokrovsk area. There, Ukraine's defense forces repelled 55 Russian attacks. 27 on the Lyman sector, 23 on the Novopavlivka sector, and 20 on the Siversk-Slobozhansk and Kursk sections of the front. In addition, 11 Russian attacks were repelled in the Siversk direction, 9 in the Pridniprovsk sector, 6 each in the Toretsk and Kupiansk sectors, and 5 Russian attacks in the southern Slobozhansk sector.
The fighting is really tough. And, in recent months, especially the last 2 months, the Russians have been pushing both in numbers and in quality. And when we talk about 11 distinct directions where the Russian forces are currently attacking, it's profoundly important to fully understand that in some specific areas the attacks are primarily tactical in their fundamental nature, while in other crucial locations it's a truly relentless meat grinder. These are the primary and most significant axes of the enemy's continuous assault, where, in a single day, literally thousands of artillery shells, FPV drones, various other devastating weapons, powerful aerial bombs, and so on are extensively used. The Russian forces, their extensive defenses, are being systematically destroyed, with up to 1,000 of their troops being killed or effectively put out of action.
The Ukrainian Defense Forces eliminated 1,230 Russian soldiers over the past day. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in their morning briefing. Ukrainian defenders also struck 3 more Russian tanks, 6 armored fighting vehicles, and over 50 artillery systems. In addition, they destroyed 2 more multiple rocket launch systems and 245 drones, as well as disabling more than 120 vehicles. Denmark will provide Ukraine with satellite communication services through the European Defence Agency. As stated by Danish Defence Minister Troels Lund Poulsen, with this decision Denmark will contribute to Ukraine's space defense. In this way, Kiev will gain access to receiving terminals that can be used for satellite communications, which will significantly help continue the fight against Russian aggression. Sweden will continue to make a significant contribution to supplying military aid to Ukraine. This was stated by the country's Prime Minister, Ulf Kristersson. According to him, Ukraine's allies need to unite as soon as possible to force Russia to stop the war.
I welcome President Trump's important decision to allow the supply of more advanced weapons to Ukraine and to significantly increase economic pressure on Russia. As one of Ukraine's largest donors, and together with our NATO allies, Sweden will continue to contribute to the rapid and substantial supply of aid to Ukraine. Ulf Kristersson, Prime Minister of Sweden, on social network X.
When selling to foreign buyers, the United States will give priority to European purchases for Ukraine. This was stated by the U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, who noted that under the agreement announced on Monday by President Donald Trump, Europe and Canada will pay for weapons produced in the United States. According to Whitaker, the decision to transfer weapons to Ukraine is also a clear signal to Putin.
We have given Russia a chance for peace, since President Trump is a peacemaker. But if you want war, we will arm Ukraine, and Europe will pay for it. And I think this is a big step toward finally ending this war. If Putin wants to continue fighting in Ukraine, the U.S. will sell Europe weapons that Ukraine can use to defend itself. Matthew Whitaker, U.S. Ambassador to NATO, in a comment for Fox News.
Following yesterday's meeting at the White House and talks with U.S. leader Donald Trump, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio discussed efforts to end Russia's war against Ukraine with the foreign ministers of France, Germany, and the United Kingdom. The American diplomat noted that President Trump's priority remains the belief that peace can be achieved through negotiations.